Everybody, it's Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of your Break It Down show with our, well, this is going to be a good one. I enjoy Frank Agin. Frank Agin is a leader, an author, a networking expert. You can definitely find him on LinkedIn, which is probably the best place to find him, or you can go to frankagin.com. He is the founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, which essentially is your ability to create your own marketing event. So he sets it up for like, you can have a charter in Orange, California, and you can set up marketing, networking events, which is kind of cool because you're trying to, you're trying to build a network of people. And now you're like, hey, why don't I just, if I'm going to do this, let's just be the host of this thing and make it even bigger. And I love what Frank is talking about. This is a real loose conversation. He's also, by the way, a podcast host. You'll dig that. But what Frank and I get into our business, relationships, how to do things right. And I think you'll dig it. I love these kind of conversations. They inspire me to be a better version of me. And I hope you all get the same thing out of that and out of the conversation that Frank and I have. A couple of things to talk about real quick. Scott Husing and I are about to take off on the second annual Ride for the Brave. That's right. We're going to be on Saturday morning leaving San Marcos, which is down by Temecula, hopping on Scott's Harley. I'll be driving the RV, and I think Nick is coming in support. We kept all their Save the Brave guys coming in support. Here's what you can do to help. One, slide in my DMs and say, how can I help? And we'll find something for you to do. Two, help us buy gas or whatever it is. We're looking for fuel sponsors primarily, but you can always help. You can always just donate. Go to Save the Brave, savethebrave.org, donate tab, put some money in there. Whatever it is, however you want to get involved. If veterans and keeping us alive is part of your personal charitable charter, hey, we'd love to have your help and we will put you to work for sure. If not, just sharing and participating in the post that we're about to have, because there'll be a lot of them as we go across the nation. I'm going as far as Dallas, and then I'm coming back to go camping to take a little bit of a break. And then I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go on the road myself, my own road trip. I'm going to go check some things out in Texas and Arizona. And I'm going to keep going east. I'm going to go to Baton Rouge and see Chris Thomas King. And this is one of the things that I get to do because people are starting to click on that PayPal link, Break It Down Show, breakitdownshow.com. And you can go to the PayPal link there. You can put a couple dollars in each month. That buys me gas. That puts me on the road. That helps me replace equipment as it gets used up. It's hot in this tent. Stuff breaks. And you're helping me to buy ads and become more known and make the show grow. And it is working. For those of you who already contribute, thank you so much. And for those of you thinking about it, think about it this way. Would you buy me a beer? Would you buy me a sandwich? Would you take me out to lunch? Or even better, do you have a subscription for something that you're not even using? You are. We all do. Take that $20, spend the 5 minutes to cancel that thing, put the $20 into my hand. I will put it to work. You know me. You know how hard I'm going to work. So that's what I'm asking for. Okay, let's get back to it. Let's get the show on the road. Here comes Frank Agin.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Frank Agin, and this is the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Frank, G's are tricky things, especially in Spanish. It might be he, it might be good, it might be j. Frank Agin is not right. It's Frank Agin. How did you say it?
Agin. Yeah, Agin. Hard G. Hey, you know what, Pete? I went to 3 years of law school, and at graduation they screwed it up. So there are only 200 people. Only 200 people in the class, and I was the first to be introduced, and they screwed it up. So you know what? Don't worry about it.
Leading off, screwing up first, Pete A. Turner.
Yeah.
And then my daughter graduated this December. Her name's Brenna, Brenna. I guess you could fancify that and get it wrong. But they invented a whole new name for her, Brianna Turner. Step on up. So you're not the only one.
That's sad. That's sad.
I appreciate you coming on the show, man, and hanging out and talking with us. Let's talk a little bit about what you do. Look, the world is full of ways to shout and broadcast, but the world always requires people to connect and do things in a way that makes some kind of sense in like a personal network. I'm proud of the network that I have and continue to expand. I consider you part of it now, but talk a little bit about what you do and why it's so important.
Well, I guess just what I do is I run an organization. I own an organization called AmSpirit Business Connections, and We bring together entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals into a weekly meeting setting where they learn about each other and exchange referrals. If you're familiar with BNI, and a lot of people are, we're a competitor of BNI. I stumbled upon this, Pete, as I was an attorney in private practice. I had no idea how to get clients, and there was basically this organization. I had an opportunity. I bought it out and really bought it as kind of an investment. And along the way, figured I need to really learn about these relationship things. And that kind of set me on my path to doing this business.
I mean, it's one thing to say, you have to get clients, but yeah, like no kidding, like how do you get them, right? And then learning how to charge them and following up on the paper. There are so many things besides being, in your case, a lawyer that you have to do that are so far outside of that. But this one requires you to do something that a lot of people are nervous about doing, meeting people, interacting with them, trying to, help focus on that. What did you pick up primarily? You bought this thing. What stood out to you as why this was investment grade for you?
Well, it was investment grade for me because in my mind, it was a no-brainer. Just the type of law that I practice, Pete, I help people buy and sell businesses. And where the price was at and where the business was at, it was very easy for me to see that unless I totally screwed it up, I would get my money back relatively quickly. So that's the reason I kind of bought into it. In fact, I had a friend who bought into it with me, and I quickly bought him out because he didn't really want to do anything. It's always a problem. Great guy. That's how I ended up buying it and realizing that, well, wait a minute here. I can, it's kind of like being in Vegas or, hey, I'm doing well and I can walk away now, or I can continue to play. And as time went on, I just got better and better at understanding how relationships work. And you mentioned that there are people who are very uncomfortable getting out there and talking to people. And I find that that's something that's very natural. What I mean by natural, it's natural for people to be apprehensive because we as humans, if you look back in time, I'm not talking 100 years, I'm talking 10,000, 100,000 years. We lived in tribes of about 150 people. And you didn't see people in other tribes. Your whole life was just those people. And when you saw a stranger, it generally wasn't something good, right? I mean, they're coming to take what you have. And so we're sort of hardwired to be apprehensive about people we don't know. And that hardwiring is carried forward into time. And so, we go to a networking event or whatever it might be, and we're those primal fears are kind of dredging themselves up. But we just have to remind ourselves that strangers will soon become our friends. You and I are just meeting, we'll connect and, this will be great. But it's always unnerving at the beginning.
I've been to a lot of meetups, in the Silicon Valley. They spend a lot of time kind of having social hour, you can go to these different things. The other thing is like you go and not everybody there is to network. Some people there to be friends. All this stuff is fine, but they're going to see other friends. They're going to, oh, look, there's so-and-so. I haven't talked to them in a long time. But a lot of things you do is you collect business cards that sit in your pocket and don't ever get developed into network things. So here's the thing designed to meet people and get people to interact, and business cards are exchanged and nothing ever happens. What do you make of that? And then what would you recommend people do differently? Because I know we all feel it. You go to a trade show, 500 cards, no action.
Yeah. Now, I have a friend down in Miami, Florida. Her name is Berta Medina Garcia, and she's written a book. And there's a great passage in the book where she talks about this. And she says, when I go to a networking event and there are 100 people, I go to a networking event and there are 5 people, I bring 5 cards. I go to a networking event and there are 100 people, I bring 5 cards. And that's her whole notion is we go to these events. And most people go to these events and they try to meet as many people as they can. They try to get their card out as many people as they can. They're card counters. So like the Vegas, dealer trying to get their cards out. And her whole thing is, I'm going to meet 5 people and I'm going to do something with those 5 people. I'm going to reach out, I'm going to have a nice conversation with these people. But then afterwards, I'm going to reach out and say, let's have a cup of coffee, or in the Zoom lockdown era, let's get on Zoom. Let's learn a little more about one another. And at no point are you ever really trying to sell, but you're just trying to understand what that person's about and trying to find ways to help them And naturally, when we help people, they want to help us in return.
How do you develop that sense of, you wrote a book called The Champion, and you're trying to find the most valuable person in your network. I mean, this kind of goes to the same thing. How do you find the most valuable person in the room? I mean, and if you go straight after it, a lot of times the people doesn't work because you're there for one thing, and that kind of sets off alarm bells early in a relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting. The book, The Champion, is kind of a fable. It's a story about a guy, Jerry, who does it all wrong, and then he stumbles on doing it right, and then ultimately realizes that the champion, the most valuable person in his network, is him. And it's true of all of us, is that the most valuable person in our network is us, because we can control us. I can control whether I find out how to say somebody's name, or I follow up with somebody, or if I go really learn about somebody. I really can't control anybody else. That's the notion behind that. Networking is really about trying to help other people. It's totally about trying to help other people, and just trusting that if you do that, things will come back to you in return. And it is a giant leap of faith, but it's something that is just proven time and again. People are hardwired to try and want to help you. You need to ask. You need to be willing to do things for other people as well.
Let's slow down right at trust, because trust is such a trust and rapport are kin. And we often say, build rapport, establish trust. And then that's kind of where the sophistication stops. I say this a lot on the show because that it's just remains true. So you have someone that you want to build trust with. How do you do that? How do you know when you have rapport? How do you test for that to make sure that you're not crazy? Because it turns out a lot of times we're flat out wrong about stuff we have no idea about.
Yeah. Trust kind of builds at its own pace. I mean, stop and think about it for a second, Pete. If you sell flowers for a living, somebody developing a level of trust in you is going to manifest itself at a whole different pace than if you're a financial advisor. There is no magical formula. It depends upon who you are, what you're selling. Rapport is just kind of that interaction. You can have a rapport with somebody and they never do business with you. But rapport is just, them feeling comfortable talking with you, you guys feeling like you have common ground. And then that all kind of builds into trust over time. It's, there's no magical formula for it. What I find works best, however, is just getting to know people, demonstrating that you care. I think a lot of times people go for the sale way too quick, and that's a problem.
One of the techniques that I use, and I'm not proclaiming to be at your level with networking, but I've had to do this professionally, but I call it fence building. And I want to know what your fence looks like and where it's at. Tell me about your fence. Can I tell you about my fence? And sure enough, over time, these fences join together and become one fence, and now you're neighbors. That's sort of how I look at that culturally, trust-wise, and understanding, we often come in for that sale that's too quick. Like I get pitched things every day on LinkedIn,
yeah.
Frank, right? Like, hey, I can help you get leads. Great. What's my business about? I can help you get leads, and we haven't built a fence,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. And same people bombarding you are bombarding me. I mean, it's comical. Last week was my birthday, neither here nor there, but I get a million birthday requests, and I have people pitching me, wrapping in that birthday. People I don't even know. Happy birthday, Frank. What do you think about my seminar? You should have stopped at happy birthday.
Or how about this? How about go past happy birthday, but don't go there. Say, hey, I don't want to just say happy birthday to you. I'm slowing down for a minute to recognize it's a big day, and I hope you have a great one. That it's already 1,000 times better.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know that I'm an expert at this any more than anybody else. I think a lot of it's common sense. But what happens is that greed, for lack of a better term, people trying to make a sale, people trying to, push a friendship along faster than needs to be pushed along, they get antsy, and they don't take the time with, as you put it, learning about people's fences. I think that's a great analogy. And I'm a big fan of just getting on the phone with somebody and getting acquainted, just totally getting acquainted, learning about them, sharing about myself and how I can be helped, and learning about how they can be helped, and seeing where it goes from there. You and I are connected because of Zoe Hazen. Shout out to Zoe. You know, she reached out to me because she was helping Mark Victor Hansen, and I just said, well, how can, let's talk. How can I help you? So I'm trying to really find a job. And I said, I've only ever had one job my whole life, but I know how to network. Let me try and help you. And in turn, again, we help people. They want to help us in turn. In turn, she said, well, how can I help you? I said, well, I'm always looking for podcasts to be on. Told her a little bit about me, and she connected us.
Right.
And that's how it's supposed to work. I'm not selling her. She's not selling me.
Right.
I'm not selling you, but there's somebody listening to this who's going to say, you know what, I need to talk to you, Frank. Here's my, I guess, a new analogy. I was asking my wife this morning. I said, do you know how much, well, it's not an analogy, it's kind of a trick question, but I said, do you know how much the average iPhone salesman makes? And she goes, no, I have no idea. The answer is nothing. You don't have to sell an iPhone. An iPhone sells itself. Right. And that's kind of how networking is. I mean, you do what you do, and you do it so well, and you get your name out there so well that people are beating your door down to buy what you have. And that's what networking does for you. It makes you an iPhone.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. I struggle to try to keep track of analogies, axioms, similes, all these different things.
Metaphors.
Yeah, there's so many. I would like to have them listed in front of my face so I can finally get them all down and use the right word. I can't keep track of it.
You know what, Pete? There's probably an English teacher out there right now just cringing at this conversation. Oh my God, can you believe these guys? I know.
We're podcasters. We talk a lot. I listen to myself all the time because you have to get better at this, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I have got to shut up sometimes. And the other thing I think is interesting about networking is and let's shout out to Zoe. Great work. It's always it's super easy to work with her, and she gives me really interesting guests. The other thing is you and I worked on scheduling, and it got a little confusing, and I'll put that on me because I'm the guy booking, and I've got to be more clear. But you did me a favor, and you were like, hey, yeah, I'll do the second that works out for me. And that really helped me massage my schedule, because the date we were proposing got filled up by my girlfriend saying, hey, we're going to go take time and go do this thing. And now that's off limits. And when I scheduled it, when you book out a whole day, it doesn't, on my calendar, it doesn't fill the whole day out. And so unless I'm looking carefully, I didn't know. So I was like, oh God. And you did me a favor by saying, yeah, sure, I'll do the second, and these are things where I think we need to let each other know how valuable that is for me. I mean, you really, not a pinch, but you made my life easier instead of saying, nah, I can't do it. Cause then I would have to, figure out how to move you to somewhere else or, cancel or whatever. But these little things, that's just a little small test. And I'm like, I know I can work with Frank because, I had this small thing to deal with, and he dealt with me, and it makes you more valuable as a network partner when you have the ability to communicate, hey, I appreciate what you did. You may not even realize it, but it's really valuable to me to move it to today.
Yeah. Adam Grant, in his book, Give and Take, he talks about the 5-minute favor in there, which it's not his concept, but somebody else's, and that we should always be willing to do a 5-minute favor for somebody. And it's so true. I mean, it's it's the little things that are, we never fall down on the big things, right? You never fail to pick up grandma at the airport, right? Because it's grandma,
right?
And everybody will know. But it's the little things that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, those little things, and there are small things, and again, reminding people, this is a little thing you did for me. You just did it because you're flexible, but to me, it meant a lot more. It took a large weight off my back to know that I had today accounted for, and I also didn't manage to muck up my my girlfriend's plans. It's a pretty big thing.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, did you know you were going to be an author going into all of this stuff that you're doing?
Pete, I wrote a novel years ago when I was 24 years old. I played college football, and that just it was a great small college football. It was a great experience. And one summer, when I was in law school, I just had really not a lot. Well, I had a job, but it was working at the prosecutor's office at night in downtown Columbus. So my days were, and all my friends were, I was home. All my friends were at work, so I had nothing to do. So I wrote a novel. So I had the confidence I could write. And when I started to really get into this networking stuff, these relationships, and there's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of research out there done at all the major institutions about why we do the things we do. And I had my own experiences. I'm like, okay, I want to try and put all this stuff down in writing. And at some point I just got to stop, right? Okay, enough. I've got enough books.
Do you though? I mean, it seems like we need more champions for actual people-to-people networking. We have look, we have access to all the information in the world, but we're not any wiser for it. We still have ridiculous things happening every day. We are like, what in the heck are we even doing here?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to common sense is not always common practice. I mean, stop and think about it, Pete. We know exactly what we need to do to lose weight. We know exactly what we need to do to become financially secure. And there are more obese people and more people who are financially destitute than ever before. And so it's not necessarily a lack of information. It's certainly a lack of discipline. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, I'm looking down to see if I had a tortilla chip left from my snack that I was having before we started. Because I'm like, I'm being good. I'm like, yep, here's a handful of tortilla chips and cheese, instant nachos. It's a small snack, but not necessarily on the plan.
Yeah, I think we all do that. But but my point, and I'm certainly not picking on you or anybody, but we all, I mean, a lot of things are easier said than done.
Yeah, is
really what it boils down to.
Yeah,
we need to go to networking events. That's easier said than done. Certainly in the COVID times. Right. But even before that, it's just we have that apprehension about going out and interacting with people, because it's so comfortable to come to the office, to sit in the chair and tinker with the things we need to do.
Yeah,
or whatever that is. I need to organize this again.
It's such a hard thing. I mean, it is hard to go out to that networking event because it happens at the end of the workday. It's way easy to skip. And a lot of times you see the same people there. So you've already networked with them, and yes, there's value in churning that relationship and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the people that you need to network with, they aren't at those meetings, and you've got to find ways to get to those other folks that aren't as gregarious. And especially now, willing to go to something where you're going to be in a room with 35, 100 people all talking and drinking and close proximity, yikes. Sounds like a horror film nowadays.
Yeah, it is. Well, people ask me about going to these networking events and, my thoughts on it. I think you need to try and work that in, but there is nothing wrong with the one-on-one conversations.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with it. So if that's not your thing, that's fine, but you have to replace it with something else. And I find that there's a lot of value in just getting on the phone with somebody and just really taking a deep dive. And then, asking who they would like to meet, and sharing with them who you'd like to meet. And then, one connection can lead to the next, can lead to another conversation. And next thing you know, you're plenty busy and not having to go out and make nice, at the taco bar or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And introductions are another level. And I think it's a higher level, in what we do with the podcast, but in general in business, if I get the opportunity to introduce two people together, and I have to, not everybody that I know in my network, some people are extremely famous and don't need to be bothered any more than they need. Right. So yep. There's some introductions where it's a little harder. But look, if you've written a screenplay and you want to get access to one of the screenwriters I know, that's adorable. But you're also I'm not doing you a favor by making that introduction directly.
Right.
Save that. I'm desperate to do it. I want to put Frank and Claire together in the same email. What you do after that's great, but it gives me an opportunity to show my appreciation for the both of you, and then also create this thing where like, wow, I mean, I put a lot of work into that introduction to say, you know, hey, you were a really important person. This is why I think Frank is valuable. And Claire, my goodness, you know, if you don't, I mean, I don't know why you don't know Claire already. I'm lucky that I've been able to do this, but I really slow down and take time to do that so that there's a chance that this handoff will work. And that I've also expressed my gratitude and appreciation to the both of you.
No, I think that's a powerful thing. That's often the biggest thing we have to offer our network is our network itself. It's not our money. It's not even time. It's just being able to stop and say, you know what? I know this person and they're a great person. We hang out at soccer games all the time, but they would be the perfect center of influence for you.
Yeah.
To me, they're meaningless. I'm not meaningless. Professionally, they're meaningless. We're buds. But for you, this would be a game changer. To make that introduction is, it can really help people out. We need to do more of it.
Yeah. That you're right. We do. Actually, I got to you in part because of talking to Mark Victor Hansen and his lovely wife, and he started connecting me to new people, and then those connections sparked off new connections, and that's ultimately how we got there, because it's a really powerful thing, you know. So I don't know how much you know about my background, but I used to be a spy in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places like that. And a lot of these things that I've learned about networking were required by me, like on the job, doing it in very dangerous places. How do you build trust, right?
Yeah.
And
I read your bio. I read your bio. It was all over your website. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah.
So one of the guys that I found along the way who sort of, he did the work, he wrote the book. We independently discovered this requirement for trust and to put the other person's needs first, because if I can accomplish my goal on your path, where like for you, it's like, this is just like going to the store, no big deal for me, then, you know, I don't care what path we take. I just want to get to my end, my A to B. And if that requires me to do things for you, well then, okay, because that's going to get me more introductions. That's going to give me more trust, is going to be extended from his network or her network into something. So I'm no longer having to only use my trust bank. And so Robin Dreek and I, we both were counterintelligence agents. He was in the FBI. I was in the Army, but we both found this method for trust and kind of codified it. He wrote the book, so he gets all the credit, but we definitely found this in the most dangerous kind of work you can do. You know, we found that trust and putting other needs first is, I mean, for us, that it's like, if you're not doing that, there's nothing else to work on except for that.
Yeah. No, I think that's again, giving. You've got to give, you've got to do things, and giving people what they want. And again, it's not manipulative, right? It's when you were doing those things, it was genuine. Now you had an end goal, but you were truly trying to help them get where they needed to be. Very interesting.
And my end goal is information. I want access to information that no one else can get. And so if I'm simply on that network as a node, you know, I'm already getting that information. And the more I'm tethered into different things, the less asking I have to do by simply look, if I'm in the right room and people are talking about things I need to know about, here are the number of words I have to say. 0. My job is to shut up. I'm in, I've done the work. I am now this passive receipt. You know, sometimes I may ask a question to clarify something or whatever, but I'm already in the right room. I'm already talking to the right person. And so everything I need to know is happening right there. And when that's all gone, then I can ask for more, I can clarify or whatever. But that's the whole point. Is the hard work for me is to build enough trust to get introduced to the people that no one else in the military is getting introduced to. You know, those business people that, you know, it's like getting a meeting with Bill Gates. That's not an easy thing to do. And to be introduced into Bill Gates, not an easy thing to do. But of those two, you know, you'd rather be introduced like, hey, this is Pete. He's my buddy. He's a good dude. Yeah, have him come out to whatever, and we'll sit on the ranch and we'll chat. You know, I mean, that's ultimately on a grand scale what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. When you think about trust, how do you sort out who's worthy of your time and effort in terms of like when you're trying to do the next thing, when you're trying to elevate that, when you look at a room full of 100 people, I mean, you got the gregarious guy that's fun to talk to, but may not be the person with the follow through and everything else. There's a lot of variables in these things. How do you sort that stuff out?
Well, it's our minds, our brains are very powerful things. Our intuition, and I'm sure, with your background, you know that you could walk into a room and you would have a sense, or you couldn't place your finger on why somebody was not telling the truth or why they were nervous, or whatever it might be, but you just knew. And I think it's the same thing when we're at networking events. I interviewed on my podcast a gentleman out of Indianapolis. He's a psychologist, and he shared with me. He said, everybody's got insecurities. Everybody. The wallflower at the networking events got insecurities, and that's why they're against the wall. The person who's the class clown, they have insecurities. That's why they're trying to make everybody laugh. The person who's very gregarious and out there, they're covering up for insecurities as well. It's the person who can deal with their insecurities that is the person that's is the person you most want to be like and be with. But to answer your question, how do I know? It's certainly a gut instinct. And I'm not moving so fast with anybody that I need to know there and now. And so I tend to watch people. I don't really listen to what they say. When I say watch them over time. If somebody is generous, you don't need to be generous with me. And what I mean by generous, helping other people, other people are trusting of them. When you start seeing that, then you kind of get the sense that there's somebody that you can trust. And that's all done over time. It's not, I'm not making rapid decisions on people. And I think in a short moment, people can fool you, or they can be something they're not. But over time, they can't maintain that. And eventually who they are just comes out.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that there's a lot to talk about in this area. Let's talk a little bit about this intuition. Just from my own personal experience, being in that room, I have to set my meter on where I'm at. And I don't know where to set my meter, but I know how to set it. So I'll set everything on no, and then make them get me off of no when I'm in a dangerous place. Or maybe I set everything on yes, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go against my instinct, but by design. And so if something triggers me like, hey, is that real? Now I'm on task to determine like what I think about this person. And if I just don't like the signs, then I move on. Knowing full well that I get probably as many things wrong as I get right. I mean, there is no scoreboard. So you just have to sort of sort these things out. So when something hits my meter, my radar and triggers it, I'm now going to test that, whether it's a good reading or a false reading, and or a bad reading, I should say. I'm like, okay, this person seems to be full of it. Let me extend these conversations and see if they'll correct my impression of that. And if they're full of it, then I'm going to move away. But we all know when we hear that bluster, we all hear it. But we also know that person who's against the wall might be a tiger. If you just went up to that person and said, hey, who were you? And you reached out and you brought them in because they are shy, or they've been burned, or they're having a bad day. That person might be the best person in the whole place because they're just waiting for someone to care enough about them to come up to them and talk to them. And you might find something. So I'm looking good and bad. What requires my attention, and can I eliminate, or should I invest more time into this person? And again, saying I'm usually my own worst enemy. I'm usually making more mistakes than I account for. And that's sort of my premises. I'm getting more things wrong. So let me allow for that and put my meter there as well. So I'm making mistakes and then yes, no on my dials. Does that make any sense? Or is that just a bunch of crazy mumbo jumbo to you?
No, it makes sense. I think we all have a process. And again, we're not, hopefully when you talk about making mistakes, you're not talking about, oh, damn, I gave my life savings to Eric.
Right.
He's gone.
Yes.
It's you made a mistake in committing time with somebody. You know what? I'm having a cup of coffee with the guy. This was a mistake. He's here and he's trying to sell me life insurance. I didn't realize that was about.
Yeah.
And we're picking on men totally here.
That's fine.
Whoever it is, right? And so I get that. I think we do tend to make those mistakes, but it gets back to what I said before. We look for reads, we look for tells with respect to people, and sometimes we can get those things wrong. Maybe it's based on our mood. Maybe it's something that they maybe intentionally did, or something was happening in that circumstance, so we got it wrong. But if we're smart and we're strategic about it, we're not making huge mistakes. That lost 30-minute cup of coffee, you know what? You chalk it up to experience. You're not introducing that person on to anybody. You're certainly not going having coffee with them. You're not investing money. You're not doing a deal with that person. And you get a little smarter, so that's, and that's, you're going to chalk that experience up. So next time when something's said, you're a little more clear on things. I mean, here's an example. I'll have people who will come to me and say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing great. I'm making 7 figures," and anymore, I know that that's probably BS. And the reason I say that is I know people I don't know many people who make 7 figures. To make 7 figures is like earning $300 an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's really not possible.
Right.
But that's the first thing. That's the rational part of me. But the other thing is I know people who do really well. And I used to be an attorney. I've seen these people. They never talk about their money. Right. People who have money don't talk about their money. And so if somebody's out there blustery about their money or their success, they probably aren't. And that's just something I have picked up in time, because I remember when I was a younger version of myself, wow, telling my wife, I need to do business with this person. They're doing great, and my wife's saying, well, how do you know that? Well, They told me, and then you start to realize, oh, okay. Their suit is worth more than their car, because they've invested in a suit and not a car, and they live in an apartment or, a tiny apartment or whatever. So you learn these things.
They're making 7 figures because they're counting all the zeros, even the ones after that dot.
Yep, that's right. They just cracked $10,000.
Yeah, $10,023, 7 figures.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. I just thought of that. My buddy Brad will appreciate that joke. I think if we look at these relationships and where our time is needed and the mistakes we might make, I agree with you. It's not like hopefully it's not too many giant mistakes. Hopefully at some point you've pruned a lot of that stuff off the tree, but you're talking about, should I be spending 30 minutes with this person? And I give a big allowance for being in the space. Doing the thing creates opportunity that you will not create unless you go have that meeting or whatever. And maybe that person starts off with insurance salesman, but there's someone else in his network, or there's something else that will work. Maybe you can help them, and now you have this person that you can champion. So you're right, trying to balance it out and not dismiss people, but also kind of marshal them. How do you manage like your, obviously people like us to do a lot of networking. There's a big network. How do you churn through old contacts that need some freshening up? Do you have like a way of managing that?
I use Outlook as kind of a contact management system. And, I'm sure there are people out there argue you should go with something different. It works for me.
Yeah.
I try to have touch points out there. A lot of it's just kind of not memorizing, but remembering what people are about. They've got that not-for-profit. They really need to be on this podcast, or be introduced to this podcast host. And it's not flawless, but that's just part of the human condition, right? I tell people all the time, if I could line up all the talents and abilities of the people I know with all the wants and needs of the people I know, like a computer, and just match them up, there'd be a lot of problems solved just like that. And it just doesn't work that beautifully. I try to do the best I can, but people are going to fall out of our lives, and that's just part of it. And hopefully the people sometimes we want people to fall out of our lives. They're a drain on us. And, it's just, it's hard to just kind of disassociate with them just like that. But then there are people you want to try and keep in your life, family, and certainly good friends, people like that.
One of the things I force myself to do, when possible, when it comes to human maintenance, networks, friends, that kind of thing, I try not to rely too much on machines. And when I'm saying this, I try to actually write an email. I mean, are there things that I have that I cut and paste? Yes, but there are elements in that cut and paste that are the truth, that are coming through, that are personal. I've taken time to write those things. And when I say that, I'm talking about like when I'm pitching guests, I have a format that I use because it works. And then, in that thing, the rest of the time, if I write an email, I'm writing it, mistakes and all, and I send them out and everything. I don't really want a robot managing those things. And I'm lucky enough that I can manage most of that myself. And I'm sure there's people saying, oh, you have to have a CPM or, whatever the programs are that manage those things. But you also lose a lot in that. And, like the fact that, oh, shoot, so-and-so popped into my head. And that's one of my triggers. If so-and-so pops into my head, I send them a note, a text, a call, whatever it is, even if they're super famous. And I'm like, hey, you popped into my head. I was thinking about you, hoping you're okay. And I don't know that Salesforce can do that for me. Can they help me scale and manage it on a giant scale? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I also don't necessarily want to trust my decision-making to someone completely who isn't me and has different motives than I have. I mean, my motives are mine. They don't belong to anybody else. It's on me to manage that as best I can.
Yeah. I mean, here's the analogy I always use, or not analogy, but the practice. Early on, I would say 20 years ago, I got a Constant Contact or iContact or a MailChimp account doing an email newsletter. Hey, this is the cool thing. This is what you do. And I would send one out religiously once a week to my database. And then there were other people that I would just email. There was a little bit of cutting and pasting. But what I found was over time, I never got any responses to the Constant Contact thing, because people know that it's just that they're one of 1,000 or more people getting this thing. Right. But what I would do every week like to get my business franchised, I was working with franchise brokers, and I had a database of 800 of these people, and I would try and touch them all once a quarter. I had emails, and I would send them stuff and try to add value to them. And I always got a lot of interaction with these emails, one-to-one type emails. And people would criticize me, what do you do? What are you working on now? Well, I've got this, every week, if it's doing once a quarter, it's like 100 and some emails I need to get out. I'm working on it. Well, you should automate that. You could get like a Constant Contact or something like that. And my response was, that's very efficient. That's a great, efficient idea. It's just not effective.
Right.
It's not an effective way. And I would get people responding to me off my personal emails, and the Constant Contact or the iContact was one of the two. I never, ever got responses to. People would say they read them, but I would never get somebody. I would never engage with somebody. It never turned into a conversation.
I'm a big believer in this, and to my own detriment. Let's be honest. I mean, I hold it a little bit too precious, but I love the affect over the effect. And if I send out 1,000 email lists and it takes me however many hours to do that, it doesn't mean that anybody cares enough to actually act. I can't get a response to my stimuli creating email, or the response I'm getting is one of being ignored or unsubscribed to, because it just becomes clutter. And I don't want to clutter up people's time. I'd rather have quality time with them, or none at all, frankly. Like if I'm not providing value to you, don't let me take up your valuable time with something. And if that's a newsletter or whatever, and I can't imagine I will ever have a MailChimp or Constant Contact. I used to do handyman work for Constant Contact. I hung a TV in their office, and I like those folks, but I don't have a need for their At least for right now. I don't have a need to blast out emails en masse to folks.
Yeah, it's and people do it. People still do it. Obviously, those businesses are doing well. They're in business. I just don't find them effective. And that's, if you're mass selling something, then you probably need to do that stuff to get a coupon out or something like that. But when you're looking to build one-on-one relationships, it's not a good practice.
I don't find that LinkedIn is very valuable. I know you've written a book about LinkedIn and everything, and that's from a long enough ago that I think it's fair to ask, is LinkedIn still a valuable platform? It seems like they've sold people on their sales, management thing, and that gets me even more pitches from a variety of more things that I don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think it's valuable?
Yes, I do. Now my approach, Pete, my approach to LinkedIn is this. I view LinkedIn as this giant business after hours. It's not a couple hundred people. It's a couple 100 million people. It doesn't go for a couple hours on a Friday. It goes 24/7. And the beautiful thing is I can walk into that room and know who I'm talking to. I walk into a networking event. There could be somebody over there dressed up in a suit, and they could be in transition. They could be a corporate executive. I don't know. LinkedIn, I know what I'm dealing with. Now, what I use LinkedIn for is really to kind of spark the conversation. Hey, I like what you've got, or I like what I see about you. I would love to get acquainted. Would you mind give me your link, or I'll give you my link, and we can get on one another's calendar. So I try to get people off of LinkedIn, but it's a great place to, I don't try to get them off of LinkedIn, but get the relationship off of LinkedIn quickly. So for me, that's been very effective for me. I don't make sales on LinkedIn. I make a lot of contacts and sales as a result of the people I meet on there. So, but I don't buy into the sales stuff and the things that they've got.
This is the problem with the companies like that. I don't want to say the social media companies, because that doesn't really capture it, but the Ubers of the world, things that create a relationship opportunity, and then they try desperately to keep you from, they have that whole disintermediation word. They try to keep themselves in your relationship by creating these values. They struggle at creating value once they've done the impossible work of putting two people that need to know each other together. If I'm an Uber driver, I no longer need Uber if I've got a book of business where I'm kept busy driving over half of the day. I just need Uber for new leads,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard for those drivers to develop those relationships. Maybe they can. I don't know. Maybe somebody out there is, every time they drive with someone, gives them a card saying, hey, need a ride, this is 20% off of what you'd pay for Uber. I'll come get you. I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe get a little bit more money, take a cut of what Uber is taking. And this isn't to bash Uber or anything, but that's what these companies struggle with. That's what LinkedIn struggles with. Like, I don't want to buy an ad on LinkedIn because I don't know that it's a place where it makes sense for me to run an ad, and it's hard to understand how to use that effectively, these tools that are modern ways to network. And I hate to bash all of them all the time, but it is a challenge to get out of them what seems to make sense in terms of finance and time.
No, it's true, but the people who are doing a lot of it on there are billion-dollar enterprises, $100 million enterprises, and they've got the money to kind of pour into it.
Right.
And they're not measuring it the same way you and I would. McDonald's puts up a billboard, and they never measure sales. They just take it on faith that billboard's going to do something. And they look at the demographics of the traffic in the area, and they go, okay, this is what we can. And you and I are just dealing at a whole different level. And so are we smarter with our money? Possibly. We're just not looking at it the same way.
Yeah. Well, definitely more precious. There's, you buy a billboard on the 405 in LA, and it makes me hungry. Even if I go to a different restaurant, it worked.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So I wanted to ask you about your podcast. Is there anything else you want to cover on networking at all before we get into that part?
No, we've talked a ton. We've talked a ton. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear someone else who digs networking and practically does it. Actually, I want to ask you a little bit about franchises too, because we often in the charity world and in the business world, we always want to start our own thing. You know, like, hey, I'm desperate to, in my case, help veterans not want to kill themselves through PTSD. So I'm going to start my charity. Well, it turns out there's a lot of charities focused on that problem. And if I just put my energy into something that's already there, a lot of the work is already done. I want to start a restaurant, and we know what the success rate for restaurants is, unless you get a franchise. So talk a little bit about the power of just, buying a franchise over trying to start something from scratch.
Well, with respect to my business, I get people coming to me all the time and saying, why can't I just do this on my own? And my response is always, you can. You can invest your own money. You can sell your own house. You can do your own taxes. But statistics show that if you work with somebody who is a professional, somebody who's really focused on it full time, you're going to be more successful. You're going to sell your house for more. You're going to get a better rate of return. And there'll be people who argue with me, and they'll have the one-off example of where that wasn't the case. But generally speaking, studies show that that's the case. And so that's where I see the power of franchising. In fact, you were before we hit record and you came on, I was reading a magazine. It's called Franchise Times, and there's tons of franchise companies out there, but those people have thought through a lot of the issues that you don't have to think through. Payroll, minimum wage. California's got a new minimum wage law, and if you're starting whatever business it is, a restaurant or sign company or whatever, there's not somebody out there looking at those things with your best interest at heart. And the saying that they have in the franchising world is, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And I think that's a real powerful phrase. So with our franchisees, certainly those are the things we're trying to help them navigate around the mistakes that we've made early on.
Sure. And then when it comes to franchises, it can seem impossible. Oh, you're going to need to have, I remember it was $500,000 in liquid capital to get a blockbuster franchise, even up until the year when the whole business destroyed itself. So what does someone realistically need to have on hand to start a business? And I mean, like a real one. I'm not talking, not that vending machines in hotel lobbies is not a viable way to make a lot of money, but what's a number that's attainable for someone who's like, I don't have a lot, I can save money, but what's that number?
Here's the lawyer coming out of me. It depends. I say that because our franchise concept, AmSpirit Business Connections, is only $10,000.
Okay.
And we're a franchise that's designed for a business or professional to add on to what they're already doing. And I won't get into a whole lot about it, but it's, we're a business that helps other businesses. There are really expensive ones out there. What I would, if somebody's looking to look into a franchise, and it not necessarily doesn't have to be mine, there are some great franchise brokers out there that I would recommend talking to, because there are lots of franchises that are on the lower end. I'm talking maybe not $10,000, but $20,000, $30,000, legitimate businesses where you're not going to have to be buying equipment and buying capital, and it's not a vending machine in hotel lobbies that you don't hear about because they don't have the wherewithal to be advertising like some of the bigger operations out there. And they're very successful, painting companies and things like that, where it's not a ton of money. If all in, well, I can't really speak to the statistics, but there are a lot of all in less than $30,000. And you go to a bank, if you got decent credit, you can go to a bank and get a signature loan for less than $30,000. But I think the key is to find franchise consultants who is reputable and will learn about your likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who doesn't want to be working weekends, or dealing with high school kids or something like that, well, then maybe retail's not for you. But there are a lot of really neat franchise concepts out there, and you wouldn't know it. You see the business and, I don't know anything about it. And you find out, well, that's a franchise.
And the ones that are, again, reasonably cost allowing, where you can do it, they also are great at selling their thing, and they can get you into dream mode. Like, I'm going to go build this book of business. How often does someone get into a franchise and they're like, I'm successful and I hate what I do every day? Because that's what we're all kind of worried about, right? Like, am I being sold something?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that comes down to the due diligence part of it.
Sure.
A good franchisor, this is what I do, is if somebody's interested in our concept, I send out an email. I send that person an email and I blind copy all the franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a guy who's interested. John in Pensacola, Florida, is interested in buying a franchise. If you have time and would be willing to talk to him, please talk to him. And this recently happened. John probably had 7 or 8 conversations with people who give him a realistic view of this is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't tell people what to say. If a franchisee's got an issue with me, then please share it with John. We'll work through all that. And so any good franchisor would be willing to do that. In fact, the franchise laws provide that you get a document called a franchise disclosure document, which should list all the current franchisees and all the people who have washed out of the system. And if you're looking to buy a franchise, I would pick some of the current ones, but I would pick some of the people who have left the system and find out why they left the system. And there can, and it's not anything necessarily nefarious. It's just, I didn't realize that like a lot of these consulting franchises, 95% of it's you're a salesperson.
Right.
5% is actually teaching and consulting. I chose this because I wanted to be a teacher and really educate people. And I realized that was a small part of what I was to be doing. And that's just not what I wanted to be doing. Oh, okay. Now I know.
And there are franchises doing almost anything. You can be in someone's home installing doors, putting up shades, stamping out concrete. Anything. There's a zillion things. Definitely take your time, everybody, and go read up on that. Let's talk really fast about your podcast because, hey, we're on a podcast. What is the thing? I don't care about the best guests. Everybody always asks me that. I'm not interested in that because there are too many great guests. What have you learned specifically from your podcast?
Well, what I've learned is that the podcasts, what I've learned from the podcast is a great learning environment. It's for me, it's opened up doors I didn't know existed. I'll be talking to somebody. I'm trying to think of an example, but they'll share something about what they do. Well, here's a great example. I was interviewing somebody on my podcast and they talked about flash briefings. I'm like, I've never heard of flash briefings. Got off, talked to them about what a flash briefing is. Is it something that will come on your Amazon devices, or you can turn it into a podcast? And so, but it's a short podcast. I have a flash briefing now. 1 minute every day. I have a little 1 minute insight or whatever you want to call it. And that's just something I learned. And it's just been a kind of a great way for me to share information. I have a podcast that comes out 2 or 3 times a week, but every day to come out with a little tidbit that people can listen to and enjoy. I was interviewed by a woman in India. She listens to it. I love it. It's a minute a day. Who doesn't have a minute?
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Those Amazon flash briefings are cool. I almost did that, but I decided to do more longer form things. But you're right. Yeah. It's such a powerful thing. And if you build up a little bit of an audience there, quite a bit. People are coming for your thoughts, and that's, you want to be a thought leader. You need people that you're leading with your thoughts, and that's a great way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of the podcast in general, by the way, it's called Networking RX. You can get it. Just go to Frank's website and you'll be able to find the website there. But where are you taking this thing? You've been doing this for a long time. You're coming up on 300 episodes. Where is this going next? Or will you just continue to kind of crank out this content as frequently as you do? Because you do a lot.
Yeah, I will probably continue doing it. I enjoy doing it. It's a great way for me to network and give back to people. I mean, I got a note right here, Pete. I need to get you on. I need to interview. I would love to talk to you about trust and your experience in the military and how, because it all interrelates, right? Dating relationships and personal relationships are all the same, or dating relationship, business related, are all the same. It's all the same. We only have one brain, right? It all works the same. And so it's a great opportunity for me to learn and meet other people, but it's a great opportunity for me to be able to offer somebody an opportunity to share their story. And, you know, I enjoy giving to other people, and that's just something I can do.
I have these conversations quite a bit. You know, should I start a podcast? And now more than ever, is the podcast market saturated? And I would say not saturated, but it's crowded. And maybe you want to think about another way to promote your business. However, if you want something that is a marketing, PR, and networking tool, then if you have, I don't know, I would say 10 hours or the ability to buy 10 hours out of a week, you should do a podcast, because you can't beat the networking advantage. You can't beat the PR ability to go on other people's shows, all these things. But what are your thoughts? Is it too late? And how do you approach this?
Well, you know, I don't know that it's too late, to be perfectly honest. I've written a number of books, and I've talked to people who've written books, and they're like, how do you become a bestseller? And I tell them, don't worry about being a bestseller. Worry about having your book impact the people it's meant to impact.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And it's the same thing with podcasting. If you only have 50 guests and you're really creating impact with those people and they're singing your praises, success.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody said this to me a long time ago. Don't look at your downloads. Don't get caught up in that, because there are people out there that a Hollywood star or an athlete's just going to have a following that you can't duplicate.
Right.
So don't compare your orange to their apple. And I think that's very true. I got started podcasting just to be one more thing I could offer to our membership to help them.
Smart, by the way. That's a great way to do it too. Internal communication, a podcast, fantastic way to approach the problem. Hey, well, listen, I've had you for an hour. It's been fantastic. You let me pound away on you and ask you a bunch of questions. It's just, Mick, I love it too. I love podcasting because we do get to have these connections, and who knows what's next for us, but I'm always interested in more, and coming on your show, that's a layup, right? And then we do the next thing and the next thing. So thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate you. Anything in closing?
You know, if I can help somebody, reach out, send me an email. You know, I would certainly be glad to try. I'm not going to solve all your problems. I'm not going to give you a fish. But if I can give you insight on how you can better fish, then I would be happy to do that.
And you can get Frank's email right there on his website. So just go to frankagin.com.